Hey, community, welcome back. And if this is your first time here, I'm Dr. Blaire, a doc in clinical psychology. And on this channel, we discuss psychology, inspiration, social justice, and all topics in between. First things first, hit that subscribe and bell button. I need to see you back next week. And of course, stay tuned because we will continue to talk about weapons that you need for the battlefield. All right, so before we jump into it, just a refresher that the battlefield is going to be a recurring series here where myself or a community member will come on and discuss a personal and or professional battle that they have fought and or are currently fighting, and it is the place that we release, reclaim and reestablish our justice for our mind, body, soul, spirit, and even for our people. And remember that the battlefield is not necessarily something that we're going to be entering right now, but instead we will be talking about weapons that we need for the battlefield because we can't step onto a battlefield ready to fight without weapons, right? Right. So this time we will be talking about the weapon of rest. So typically, when we hear the word rest, we think, "Oh, child, I'm ready to go to sleep." We think about relaxing. We think about it's time to take a break. Some of us even think about a lot of the things that we do for self care. But I want to add a little bit more of value around what rest is, especially as a believer, how we ought to look at rest according to scripture. So, with that being said, let's put this in the context of the battlefield. If we are on a battlefield and we are fighting a battle or a war, whatever you want to call it, and you're working on some of those things like what we talked about last month in July or something totally different. Either way, you're going to need moments where you take a rest. And it really reminds me of moments when I've seen like movies or scenes where they're in a battle and the team needs to retreat. They need to kind of take a step back. And I think about all of the things that happens in that moment when they retreat, when they take that step back. And so I want to think about this in not just a methodical way and not just figuratively, but actually literally. What are some of the things that we do when we are in a place of rest? Because rest is not just a thing that we do, it is not just an environment, but is a thing that we have to internalize as well. So one of the key components that happens during rest, it's an opportunity to rejuvenate, to chill out, to relax. And so as you are rejuvenating, that is when you are rebuilding on your energy, you are rebuilding on your focus. You are going to build up in several different areas. And in order to build up, sometimes you just need that moment to recharge. This is probably the most common ideas around rest. This is one of the ways that we all want to rest is when we get tired. We want to be able to rejuvenate, to relax, get some chill. Now, let's take this a step further because also during rest it's an opportunity for you to reassess, to see if the plan that you set out, the plan that you have, is it working the way that you thought it was going to work? And so in a battle or on the battlefield, you have to sit down, let's reassess, let's look at scan the field and look and see what is effective and what is not. This gives you an opportunity to actually see if you are utilizing your weapons properly, if your strategy is working as planned, or if you need to reevaluate your plan and actually kind of move some stuff around. This is an opportunity to do that during rest. And this is not necessarily to kick into work mode, but during your retreat, while you're regrouping, you want to make sure that before you go out, that you're doing something that's actually going to be helpful and not make you go back further away from your goal, right? Right. This is most important because prolonged exposure to battle or fighting, of course, you get weary, you get tired, you get burnt out over time. But when we start to see some symptoms of mental health kick in, it may look like depression, anxiety, mood shifts, even trauma. And so that breaks down into looking like being hypervigilant, always worried, excessively worried that something bad is going to happen, being heavy spirited, feeling down, having a loss of interest. Maybe you've gotten to a point where now you're like, I want to give up. I no longer want to fight this fight. I don't care what happens. I'm not feeling hopeful anymore. And you are not even seeing things for the future. That could be some signs that maybe you've been in a fight for too long and you hadn't taken your opportunities to take your rest to rejuvenate. Now, let's not confuse this with actual physical battle versus this figurative battle of fighting things or areas of ourselves that we really want to improve. Remember, we're still going with the same concept of the battlefield that we've been talking about since July. And I want to be sure that anyone who is new here doesn't take this as me talking about physical battle or things that are happening in our world wars, but instead on this other end. And I'm kind of moving my hands back and forth. You can't see me from not over here. But we're over here. So with that being said, if you are over here for too long, even if you're fighting that war in therapy and you have support there, that it sometimes is effective to take a pause from working on that particular area and looking at something else, because this is a form of rest. Even when I was doing trauma processing with some patients, in the trauma processing, sometimes we may need to take a break and rest, because the prolonged exposure can be an overload for your brain. It can be an overload for your emotions, so on and so forth. And so that you don't go into overload where you're burning yourself out and you now have gotten even compassion fatigue for yourself, you are ignoring the signs that you need to tap into your rest. So rest used effectively and not abused is actually helpful. So what I mean by like abused rest, because I feel like some people are going to sit here and say, well, Dr. Blaire told me I need to go rest. Yes, I am saying that, but I'm not saying to abuse the excuse of rest, because too much rest is not actually rest. You just sleeping it off. You just, avoiding and ignoring. Remember, we always have to be on this seesaw effect where we're working to have a healthy balance. And so while you're having a healthy balance, sometimes you rest, sometimes you work, and you vacillate between the two when needed, here to recoup, here to get the job done, here to reassess, here to get the job done. You see how this happens? So when you come back over here another time, especially as a believer, the word says, come to me, those who are weary, and I will give you rest. And I think that sometimes our natural brain goes to a lot of the things that I just mentioned as it relates to rest. But as a believer, that rest also means to rest in the presence of God. And when you are resting in the presence of God, He can do all those things and some while in rest with Him. He can check off every single thing that we've talked about and rejuvenate you, not just your physical self, but your spirit, man, as you are going forward to head back onto the battlefield to fight with Him. So let's just kind of gather all of this up. Rest with God can do so much more when you are partnering with Him, but He will give it to you if you submit to Him. That's the key. Submitting to Him, He will then give this rest back in return to you, and it will do far more than you can do on your own. Okay, so I feel the need to recap. I know that this is a relatively short video, but it's a short video that's packed with a lot of information. Let's recap real quick. One, it is important to take a rest off of the battle. And when you take a rest, you are giving an opportunity for you to rest in God's presence, where He can rejuvenate you. He can build you back up. He can replenish your energy and give you an opportunity to reassess with Him to see what is working, what is not working before you head back onto the battlefield to fight with Him. Remember, we're fighting with Him. And this may also apply to other areas in your life, whether in therapy, even at work. That's what PTO is for. Like sometimes you just need to take a rest and take a chill pill and allow your brain to simmer so that it doesn't turn into symptoms like symptoms that are related to, I should say, anxiety, depression, trauma, compassion fatigue, burnout, so on and so forth, because we don't want to get to a place where we are making impulsive decisions, where we are starting to become a bit more snappy, irritable, or even to a point where our spirit is feeling very heavy and we are depressed or excessively worried. We have to take a moment so that we do not go on the other end, the far end of the spectrum, but instead that we are practicing a healthy, balanced seesaw effect, which is, I might add, ongoing work. It never just stays here. A seesaw is always leaning one way or the other, but the point is that we're continuing to work to make sure that the scales or the ends are balanced. Make sense? That makes sense. With that being said, you all, I charge every single one of you to assess, do you need rest and why do you need rest? What are you going to do during your time of rest? How will you use it effectively and intentionally? Sometimes we just want to do absolutely nothing. Is doing nothing intentional? Is there some intentionality and value behind doing nothing? Think about it, challenge yourself, and be honest, please. Thank you. Okay, again, I have announcements for you. And yes, it's the same announcements as last week, but I just feel like you might need another refresher since we're talking about refreshing, rejuvenating the rest and whatnot. With that being said, I am offering an online wellness workshop. All of the information will be down below in the description box, along with a promo code to get a percentage off. In this wellness workshop, we will be working on building on mental stamina, coping mechanisms, and also an assessment to see what in your past, and this is going to be more self-guided, but I'll be there as a support to see what in your past may be contributing to how you cope currently. But instead, I want to equip you with tools, with coping mechanisms that will be healthy and effective given what you've done in the past and also where you are intending to go in your future. And of course, the biggest announcement that I keep on making a huge deal about because I need to make sure that it is on your calendar. So here again is the save the date for the Battlefield Conference. It is going to be amazing, y'all. I have so many great people that are involved in this that are coming ready to pour into your life because we are going to be taking faith and mental health principles and actually equipping you all. And with that equipment, remember, it is still the place that we are going to release, reclaim, and reestablish our justice. This is a place where we will be getting justice and it will be turning into victory. With all of that being said, make sure that you are there. If you're in Chicago, you're near Chicago, you want to make sure that you're there. Bring your family. We're not hiding, we're not hiding wives and whatnot and their kids. You can bring them, but it is going to be amazing in a place where we will be winning with one another as a community. So tell your neighbor, I'll be there. So you should too. Like, comment, subscribe, and share. Share with your community and make sure that you are sharing with someone who needs a refresher on what rest really is. And remember, before you go, and I see you next week, if I'm great and you're great, then we're a great community.